Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily, the first English news program in Poland. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. It seems as if the recent conflict around the LGBT communities in Poland might have boosted the current ruling Law and Justice Party's support, according to political experts. The civic platform's shift to the left to avoid giving votes away to the liberal Spring Party may have also been the cause for the ruling party gaining supporters.
Following the recent events at the so-called Equality March in Białystok, the conflict surrounding the expansion of the LGBT community became the #1 issue of the parliamentary election campaign.
Wydaje mi się, że w ogóle niedobrze by było,
First of all, I don't think the opposition should focus around that conflict. That being said, horrible things happened in Białystok. People were hunted on the streets. It was tragic.
Miały miejsce rzeczy haniebne.
Postępuje ofensywa środowisk LGBT, która
We're witnessing the expanding offensive of the LGBT communities. Religious feelings are being offended, like with the figurines of the Holy Mary. I wouldn't want to entertain such conflicts. It's inappropriate, and there are more pressing matters to attend to in Poland than something that is disliked by the majority of the Polish society. According to Grzegorz Długi from the Kukiz 15 movement, bringing up the ideological conflict by the opposition is advantageous for the law and justice.
Bardzo się dziwię, że
I'm quite surprised that the far liberal communities are not saying that, and how manifestations and playing politics are more important to them than a concrete program. Instead, they're focusing on events. Almost every day there are reports of new incidents brewing up the conflict around the LGBT ideology in Poland. Tomorrow there will be a march against violence in Białystok organized by the Democratic Left Alliance, connected to the events that transpired in the city during the Equality March last Saturday.
According to the survey conducted by the Social Changes pollster for the wypolitycy.pl website, if the Polish parliamentary elections were to be held today, the United Right coalition would win with 46.4% of the votes. This is the best result in history by this pollster.
The ruling party coalition obtained results 1% higher than the previous survey, while 26.3% of voters would support the Civic Platform Party. The Democratic Left Alliance and the Spring Party would cross the electoral threshold, getting 6.7% and 6.2% of the votes. The Polish People's Party, the Freedom, the Kukiz 15 movement, and the Together Party would struggle to cross the electoral threshold.
The good weather and calm sea in the Mediterranean has recent days enticed hundreds of migrants to set off from the African coast in their attempts to migrate to Europe. The sea is, however, treacherous, and this year's deadliest accident so far has occurred off the Libyan coast, where up to 150 people drowned on Friday. While Australia has managed to eliminate incidents in its waters by adopting a non-tolerance policy based on turning migrants' boats back, many Western European leaders, and in particular French President Emmanuel Macron, however, insisted on a mandatory EU migrant quota system for all member states.
One of the shipwreck survivors stated that they had to swim for 7 hours before they could be rescued and taken back to shore in Libya. There were 300 of us in the boat, and then water came in. 100 people were rescued, but the rest all died. The women, children and girls all died. Glory to God, we started swimming for almost 7 hours, and then we were rescued by fishermen, almost 100 of us. We have been here for 2 days, and no one has come to get us. Also on Friday, another group of migrants on dinghies were rescued 27 miles off the Libyan coast by the Libyan Coast Guard. We headed out from Coms, heading towards Italy, but there was no luck. We sailed for a day for around 15 or 16 hours. Then they brought us here, and thank God we made it safely. We had no luck, but thank God we made it here safely. Some groups of migrants which also set off from Libya were successful in making it across the Mediterranean. 67 were picked up by the armed forces of Malta and allowed to disembark in the country's capital, Valletta. Meanwhile, the Italian Coast Guard vessel Grigoretti picked up 135 migrants off the coast of Malta. Italian Minister of Interior Matteo Salvini has banned the ship from disembarking them in Italy until other EU states promise to take in some of the migrants on board. The increased activity of the Mediterranean in recent days highlights the fact that the EU, 4 years after the 2015 European migration crisis, still hasn't found a way to dissuade migrants from Africa and the Middle East to attempt dangerous sea crossings to Europe.
The Supreme Court has cleared the way for the Trump administration to tap Pentagon funds to build sections of a border wall with Mexico. This means that Trump's 2016 election campaign promise will be fulfilled. The U.S. president said on Twitter that the court's decision is a great win when it comes to the border safety and the rule of law. The border wall will cost upwards $6.7 billion.
Wow, big victory on the wall. The United States Supreme Court overturns lower court injunction, allows southern border walls to proceed. Big win for border security and the rule of law. They give us the Mexican papers, but we don't have anyone here who can help us. We really don't know how it's going to be here. They want to give us an asylum or something like that. They throw us on the streets. I've been traveling with my son for 1.5 months. We came here on foot, we took a bus, we tried to hitch a ride. The situation is very hard.
Let me go up to the US-Mexico border, I beg you. Please don't let me be taken back. I want to get to the US to provide a better life for my son. I've had to spend a lot of money to get here.
That's it for today. See you next time on Poland Daily. But stay tuned for the Poland Daily Weather Report, followed by the Poland Daily Business section.
Welcome to Poland Daily Weather. Let's take a look at the forecast for tonight. Light overcast sky in large parts of the country. Rainfalls will appear around Wrocław and Rzeszów. The temperature will range from 16 to 19 degrees. And now over to tomorrow. Sunny weather in most regions. Rainfalls and storms will appear on the south. The highest temperature, 33 degrees, we will see in Warszawa. A minimum will be 28 in Koszalin. Let's see the weather for the following 3 days. On Monday, the sun will be shining in central Poland and on the northeast, while the rest of the country will see rainfalls and storms. Tuesday will bring us lower temperatures ranging from 23 to 26 degrees. On Wednesday, we are expecting rainfalls in the whole country. Temperatures will fall to 21 degrees. Thank you for watching and see you soon.
Poland Daily Business Edition. Tonight we will talk to Dr. Ryszard Żółtaniecki, former Polish ambassador. Sir, welcome to the show. About the Polish strategy of building the local alliance. The local alliance started over 20 years ago with cooperation with 3 other countries, Czech Republic, Slovakia and Hungary. That was called the Visegrad Group. And historically it was traced to the 16th, 17th century, rather 16 and 15, when we had common kings. The kings of Poland and Lithuania were also, or their brothers were the kings of Czech Republic, kings of Hungary. And that cooperation left little notice in history books, but now is revived. To what degree it works? Can we say that this makes sense in present-day European Union?
It has a deep, very deep sense. Why? First of all, we have a common history. Unfortunately, in the European Union, those core countries, the old, so-called old Europe, tried and is trying still to impose certain patterns of behaviors, certain cultural and civilizational even model of operation. We in Central Europe have a different experience. We went through different historic time. Also, what unites us is a memory of the communist past. All we went through it. What, from the perspective of Rome or Amsterdam or Brussels, is quite exotic. Why we think differently? Because we are different. Also, we have 27 now countries, well, 28 even, because Brexit is still ahead of us. And it's difficult to make decisions in such a big group. So regionalism and consultation with the regional group is crucial for efficiency of the decision-making in the European Union as a whole.
Is it a consequence of the Lisbon Treaty? The idea of first of all, Poland lost the blocking ability after the Lisbon Treaty, but this Lisbon Treaty kind of favors gathering of the countries and kind of concord between various countries. This is exactly what Poland and the other countries of the region are doing.
And practically has done. Some times ago, we heard, and some of us believed, that the formula of the Visegrad Group is empty, like Weimar Triangle. After that, we all are a member of the same community.
Weimar Triangle, Poland, Berlin, France, and Germany alliance that didn't work.
It worked for some time,
Right.
And then it became evident that it has been exhausted. That it has been exhausted, and also the same. I would say the scheme was transformed somehow to the thinking about Visegrad Group. So our gathering or our alliance is spontaneous. It's natural. It's not only effect of the negotiation. Negotiation is just the dot put after the long sentence.
So you are saying that we have a cultural similarity, historical binds that go really long in the time, 1,000 years of history. We have
filtered by the communism.
We have communism that is another trace of common history, very recent, that people still alive who remember that things. And we also have common interest within the European Union. And we know that gathering in this group elevates the status of small countries to the status of the middle size or big country in the European Union. Because together we have almost 40 million Poles, 10 million Czechs, 8 million Slovaks, 10 million Hungarians. So that's about 70 million people, which is equal to Italy or France.
This natural character of alliance is stressed by the very interesting event. Let's return to the time before the last EU summit. Leading political force in Slovakia, socialist. In Czech Republic, liberal. In Poland, we are conservative. In Hungary, there are European People's Party. So each of the country belong to the different family. And somehow,
the ruling party.
And somehow it was a big success that we managed to maintain the unity in front of the, I would say, one of the biggest challenge we faced in the European Union, election or nomination of the
we saw
the most important position in the European Union, in the Commission.
When it was certain that Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia and Hungary will maintain common position, the other party kind of joined the bandwagon, and Croatia did the same, Latvia from the other side on the Baltic. So it looks like we can create a driving force within the European Union.
We have to have, under the circumstances, the driving force. Someone has to take the lead. I'm always very careful with connection Poland with the position of leadership in the region, because, you know, it's a very sensitive...
they may not like it.
Precisely. They have their own pride, they have their own dignity and positions in the European, or we are equals. But someone has to be first. Someone has to start. All states are equal, but always someone has to speak the first.
Right. That's... these words are at least 2,030 years old. Primus inter pares, the Caesar Augustus, who built the power of the Rome after the internal wars, and maybe that's the role Poland will play. Who knows? If so, Mr. Ryszard Żółtaniecki will definitely tell us.
You see, it's a very interesting, fascinating subject, this equality and inequality in the international games. The UN Charter says, you know, decisively, all states are equal. All legally recognized states are equal. But we know there are two small corrections. First of all, someone has to be first. I mean, who is delivering speech as the first? Secondly, we know practically from the pragmatic point of view that also is a power, it's a result of the strength of the particular states. Of course, formally, the Tonga Island in the United General Assembly is the voice, is equal to China or the United States, but it's a sort of formal illusion. And also we face the same situation in European Union. We cannot compare the strength of Latvia, our neighbor, with the strength of Germany. So for the small countries, the key condition for the success or successful political action is to make a coalition and operate within a coalition and to represent itself, the single country, but as a group, and as an element of the group, member of the group.
We can gladly say that Poland knows how to do that, and we have successfully employed this strategy.
It was definitely, in spite of all those personal turmoil in Brussels now, because we don't know what 16th of July will be done by European Parliament. But on this stage, it's an evident success that we maintain to keep the united position of Visegrad Group, and the group is growing.
And that's
that we are as a magnet
pulling other countries to
us.
So thank you very much for this insight. Ryszard Żółtaniecki, former ambassador of Poland, was our guest tonight, and that was it for Poland Daily Business.
Welcome back to Poland Daily Weather. Let's take a look at the forecast for tomorrow. Sunny weather in most regions. Rainfalls and storms will appear on the south. The highest temperatures, 33 degrees, we will see in Warszawa. A minimum will be 28 degrees in Koszalin. Let's take a look at the forecast for our continent. In Scandinavia, temperature will range about 27 degrees. In British Islands, light overcast weather will appear. In Moscow and Kiev, some rain is expected. The highest temperature will be in Rome, 36 degrees. Thank you for watching and goodbye.
Welcome to Poland Daily Culture. I'm John Carter, and on today's episode we're joined by candidate for Mars One project, Mikołaj Zieliński. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me here.
So you kind of touched on it a little bit about what you'll be doing in your potentially you'll be doing in your everyday life there. You know, you mentioned about the exercise and a little bit about going out onto the surface as well. Could you sort of talk us through how you envisage an everyday life on Mars?
Okay, so before we go to Mars, we will send some hardware to make the habitat ready to live there. So we will send autonomous robots, and we will start producing breathable air on Mars and water. And we will monitor it for 1 year to make sure that everything is safe for humans. And only if the habitat on Mars, the outpost, will be in good condition and atmosphere inside will be also safe, meaning proper temperature, proper air pressure, proper level of CO2 and nitrogen, and oxygen, of course, everything, then we will send humans to Mars. So once we arrive on Mars, we already can enter a habitat and we can live there, sleep there. We will have some food, water, and spacesuits, life support system, backup life support system. Everything will be there. And like you go to a hotel for holidays and you have toothbrush and towel and everything ready.
Different.
Yeah. And so what we will have to do first will be to complete some work that autonomous rovers wouldn't be able to do. Like make, for example, connection between some units, deploy solar panels, and things like this. And then we will start preparing the habitat for the following mission, because we are going to send to Mars every 2 years new crew. And so we will have to extend the outpost, add more living units, deploy more solar panels, add additional life support system and one more backup life support system, and make sure that when another crew arrives, more water is produced, more oxygen is produced, and instead of one team, 2 teams will be able to survive.
So there's groups of like 6 within each living unit. 4, sorry. Yeah. So there's groups of 4 within each living unit. What's the kind of rough size of this living unit?
So it will be a tube, 5 meters diameter and 25 meters long. And this will be our living unit. So it will be, let's say, 4 times like this studio, more or less, maybe bigger.
Okay, so it's about then the size of, well, let's say twice the size of a person's average flat.
Yes, it will be quite small, confined, and there will be no privacy, which may cause some issues. And that's why we will be together training in one team for 10 years to make sure that we are okay in such, with no privacy between each other. Because indeed, with some random people, it may be not so funny. If you have to share all the time you see the same 3 faces, it doesn't matter if things are going well or not. And even if you go to toilet, everyone can hear what's going there because everything is so small, so each room is so small and so close.
Mars One is a highly ambitious project aiming to establish a permanent human settlement on Mars. It might sound like science fiction, but they have scheduled several unmanned missions in the next few years, which will create a habitable settlement before rigorously trained crews depart to Mars. This team is yet to be established. There is currently a 100-person shortlist under evaluation, with that eventually being whittled down to 24 before the candidates undergo some of the toughest psychological training known to humanity. The shortlist includes people from all around the world with a variety of backgrounds, including the only Polish citizen, Mikołaj Zielinski. Mikołaj is a software programmer with a passion for science, discovery and adventure. 5 years ago, he learnt about the Mars One project, and given that the only initial conditions for application were being aged over 18, he immediately applied. However, Mikołaj is not your average wannabe astronaut. His strong desire to discover and help civilization have led him to be prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice and never return to Earth.
The objective of Mars One project is colonialization of Mars. Now, in your opinion, how realistic is that goal?
So the word colonialization, it can be understood in different ways. Like, for example, by colonialization, people may think that we already have cities on the entire planet. Okay, this is not going to happen very soon. This is required first to be able to use in situ resources, to be able to produce plastic, concrete, glass and everything from resources on Mars, not to bring them from Earth. So this will take time. But like, for example, it was in the movie The Martian, where the main character was growing potatoes. He said once that once you grow food on Mars, you colonialize the planet. Or once you grow food on some celestial body, you colonialized it. So in that way, it's better to say that Mars One is trying to enable colonialization than colonializing, because you know, if you have just a little, like today in Antarctica, we have several research stations of different countries, but there is only one building with 20 scientists living there. And in the beginning, something like this will be on Mars. There will be small group of people trying to survive in harsh environment, very rarely going out, doing some science experiments inside and living normal life, trying to live normal life there.
So I suppose colonialization it's more about self-sufficiency,
yeah,
and no reliance on what's happening on Earth and the materials from Earth.
Yeah, this will be very, very important, and one of first tasks to figure out how to, for example, to build with 3D printers bigger constructions and use for 3D printers input something which is available, for example, Martian soil, mixed maybe with something, but really use only what is available on Mars. The same with water, recycle water, and not without need to, like International Space Station is they are recycling water, but they are using a chemical reaction called Sabatier reaction, which requires input of hydrogen, if I am not mistaken. So from time to time you have to deliver hydrogen from Earth to ISS. And if we can, for example, improve methods that we use to recycle water, air, especially oxygen, and be completely independent from Earth, then this will be very, very important and a great achievement for people on Mars. And also it will be great for people on Earth, because by improving techniques of recycling everything what we can, this will be a good example, and it will be probably used on Earth in some places where access to water is limited and so on. So actually this is also, like we are touching now, the problem which is raised very often, that we go to space, but we have so many problems on Earth. But by solving those problems in space, we can show that we can find solutions for Earth's problem also.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Poland Daily History. Today we are visiting the city of Ciechanowiec on the northeastern side of Poland and the Krzysztof Kluka Museum of Agriculture. They are organizing a medieval fair, or rather an event focusing on the lifestyle of the nobilities during the 18th century. Join us as we delve deeper into the various aspects of the Polish nobility during the time where Poland is under partition. So the museum here is named after a priest called Dr. Kluka, and otherwise known in other countries as the Polish Darwin. I was wondering if you can tell me a little bit about his life and how long did he serve here in this city?
Z określeniem polski Darwin zetknąłem się w latach 80. XX wieku, jak rozpoczynałem pracę w Ciechanowcu.
The first time I came across the term Polish Darwin in reference to Father Kluk, it was in the 1980s when I started working in Ciechanowiec. Well, this term was coined by tourists who came from Sweden. It bothered me a bit, which is why I took a closer look at this issue, and according to my research, it seems that it is Darwin who should be called the English Kluk, rather than Kluk, the Polish Darwin. Priest Krzysztof Kluk, although he was a priest, a clergyman, learned a lot from the scientific achievements of earlier years and even earlier centuries. He also found inspiration in the so-called ladder of beings. Well, this ladder has been known since ancient times, even back in Greco-Roman times. The ladder consisted of several levels. At the top, there were either gods, as it was in Greece and Rome, or in later times it was one god. The second highest level on the ladder was occupied by people. Then came the animals, plants, minerals, and so it went lower and lower. And Father Kluk used this ladder in practice. Therefore, due to the fact that previously there was a mental break that lasted several hundred years, during which the scientists did not use this ladder, it could have been assumed that Father Krzysztof Kluk created the ladder of genetic development of organisms on Earth. And in turn, Darwin, a few decades later, popularized it, hence the wrong conviction that if Darwin was modeled on, and probably was modeled on by Krzysztof Kluk, hence the term Polish Darwin. But let's not demonize this one case. Priest Kluk was an outstanding scientist. There are few scientists who lived for only 56 years, 25 of which came only after the period of studying, that were able to create 14 volumes of natural works, or were able to write nearly 4,500 pages of scientific texts, and in such different fields as botany, zoology, mineralogy. Father Kluk also wrote textbooks for learning botany and zoology. He also had many revelations about plants, including some modeling on his favorite mentor, Carl Linnaeus, a Swedish researcher. He created a new nomenclature for many plants, and even what many have inefficiently tried to take away from him, he described a new species of plants that bears the Latin name Scabiosa inflexa, or driftwood. Now you add Scabiosa inflexa Kluk, as the priest is now the godfather of the plant. Priest Kluk also dealt with mineralogy, a field completely deviating from botany, zoology, the strictly natural sciences. This indicates his very large and wide field of interest. But he was lucky. His luckiness was Anna, Duchess Jabłonowska, who created the largest learning cabinet in the history of natural history. It was later stolen by the Russians after the third partition of Poland. The Office of Natural History, which Priest Kluk could use, contained all the then achievements of scientific Europe known by the end of the 18th century. He could also use numerous exhibits imported via Gdańsk, which went to this cabinet. Yet he could appreciate the efforts of the common men too, the peasants, the poorer nobility, and also promote that these people would not be treated by the richest as animals or some strange extraterrestrials, only that they should be treated as people, as members of our society.
Ci ludzie nie byli traktowani przez najbogatszych jak zwierzęta albo jakieś dziwne istoty pozaziemskie, tylko żeby byli traktowani jak ludzie, jak członkowie naszego społeczeństwa.
Father Jan Krzysztof Kluk was one of the foremost scientists of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth during the 18th century. Next up, we will ask the historian Norbert Tomaszewski about the impact Father Kluk had on Ciechanowiec. Father Kluk sounds like a very important figure in the scientific field, and I was wondering what are his impact on this specific city?
Otóż powiem tak trochę przewrotnie, że
You could say that the activity of the Kluk family in Ciechanowiec begins before the birth of priest Jan Krzysztof himself. His father, Jan Krzysztof Adam Kluk, was the main architect of the church dedicated to the Holy Trinity in Ciechanowiec, whose construction was commissioned to him by the then owner of Ciechanowiec, Tomasz Ossoliński. This is his work, a work that stands here to this day. And it was in the year of the consecration of this church that in 1739 Father Jan Krzysztof Kluk was born. Not only the church, not only his father, the builder, but also Kluk himself meant a great deal in Ciechanowiec. Among other things, the lack of availability of fresh, clean water was one of the biggest problems in Ciechanowiec at that time. Among other things, thanks to priest Krzysztof Kluk, wells appeared in the city since the time when he took over the Ciechanowiec parish, this is from 1770. He also created a beautiful new wooden presbytery, which he paid for with his own funds. His parish, which unfortunately later burnt down after his death, we can only regret it now. Kluk also described many plants growing around Ciechanowiec. It was very important. He was assisted by his mother, who had died only 2 years before her son did. Father Kluk looked after his mother until the very end of her life. His mother was involved in church organizations that existed in Ciechanowiec, and thanks to her, her son reached many people in need, or sometimes in need of religious support. We also note this in the documents of the neighboring parishes, that priest Kluk was very active in the entire Ciechanowiec deanery. He tried to reach all the parishes, even though he was often ill and not very mobile. Nevertheless, he was everywhere, wherever he could, whenever he was needed. And this perfectly testifies to the story of a man who did not confine himself to his presbytery in his native parish, but he was a parish priest spelled with a capital P, and also a great man.
Swojej parafii rodzimej, ale potrafił być proboszczem i to przez duże P i wielkim człowiekiem.
So we had just talked about the scientific achievement of Father Kruka, and I was wondering if you can go a little bit about his life and how long did he stay here? What are his impact in this specific city?
Otóż jest jedna pamiątka związana z...
There is one souvenir associated with Father Kluk, a beautiful monument from 1850, created by Jakub Tatarkiewicz. At that time, he was considered to be in top echelons of sculptors. It is enough to say that Jakub Tatarkiewicz was a student of Bertel Thorvaldsen himself, who was a sculptor known throughout Europe. And also, thanks to Jakub Tatarkiewicz, the only available portrait of priest Krzysztof Kluk was saved. It was probably a self-portrait. Thanks to that portrait, a monument was created which has stood the test of time, even though during the German occupation, the occupants wanted to destroy this monument. However, after receiving a solid bribe, they agreed to let it be.
Po otrzymaniu solidnej łapówki zgodził się na jego pozostawienie.
As we have seen today, the Polish nobility faced a wide range of problems at the end of the 18th century. Most prominently, the loss of national sovereignty due to infighting. Nevertheless, they were able to preserve their culture and tradition throughout centuries for future generations to admire. That's it for today. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and I'll see you next time on Poland Daily History.
Hello, and it's time for another edition of Poland Daily Travel. This time we're taking you to Płock. That's right, that ancient capital of Poland, northwest of Warsaw. It's only 100 and some kilometers, but it's almost a world away from the hustle and bustle of the nation's capital. Płock is famous for its situation on a bluff high above the Wisła. Its cathedral is known as one of the 5 oldest churches in Poland. Its location is at a junction of ancient shipping routes which made it a very important medieval city. Nowadays it is the home of the Museum of Mazowsza with its excellent collection of Belle Epoque furniture. And that's before you even consider the city's most original asset. And that asset is the longest pier on a river in the whole of Europe. The pier extends out into the wide Vistula and provides a natural harbor for smaller boats, mostly pleasure craft and some smaller fishing boats. So when you're in Warsaw, Płock is not that far away. It's an enjoyable day out. You'll have to get your car. There's no train service there. You might take a bus, but it's worth it to see the beautiful countryside between Warsaw and Płock. So stay tuned as Poland Daily Travel takes you to the princely city of Płock. Poland Daily Travel, your favorite travel programming about Poland.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another exciting edition of Poland Daily Travel. We're here on the square in beautiful downtown Płock. Yes, I said that right, Płock. But if you don't speak Polish, it is Płock.
All right.
Kind of.
Kind of.
And this is Danuta, one of the citizens of Płock, who is here to be our guide and take us around and make life a lot easier for us, right?
I hope so.
Yeah, I think so. Anyway, we've been talking a lot, and there's a lot of before we were off camera, and there's a lot of exciting things to be doing right here. Behind us, we have the town hall, which looks pretty magnificent and suitable for a city which was once the capital of Poland, as we
That's
said
true.
previously. It was the capital for about 60 years? Or?
Well, in fact, it was a bit less than 60 years. Płock used to be the capital of Poland, but it was not the time when Poland was the country.
It was just before Poland was
It
a
was
country.
just before Poland was formed as Poland.
Yeah, so we're talking about the 1100s, right? Or
That's
something like
true.
that. Is that right?
Yes,
Yeah.
11th century and 12th century. Those were the times when Płock was the ducal capital.
Yeah.
Ducal capital.
Yeah, so they still call it the princely city of Płock.
Yes,
which has
we
nice
can say.
alliteration. I like the alliteration. no?
That's true. That's
Yeah.
true. Yes.
Okay.
The whole story started long before because at pagan times there were settlements of people from around the world coming to this place to look for a better life. Officially, Płock started in 1237.
Right.
And then it received municipal rights. It was one of the first municipal rights documents in Europe, in
Okay,
fact.
so it's a very early city then.
It is.
In terms of European cities. Why build the city here? I mean, I guess we're going to see some of that later, but why do you think they put the city here?
I think the decision is obvious because of geographical position.
Uh-huh.
Płock is located on a hill and by the river, which used to serve for different options, for work, for food, for travel. The Vistula River, which we are talking about, used to be like the Amazon River today. It was wild, it was wide, and even
Wider than today, yeah.
much wider
Yeah, and
than
deeper,
today,
I suppose, or-
and probably much deeper because the transportation was very easy at that time, and today it is not so.
No, I mean, now it's not navigable. There's hardly any traffic
It
on
is,
the
but only for
short distance.
tourists and short distance.
Yeah.
Yes, and you can't just get from the beginning, the starting point of the Vistula River to the end without problems, right?
Which would be, say, Krakow would be a reasonable starting to Gdansk, for example,
Yes,
right?
yes,
And
but
we're
it
going to
used to be
see
like that.
the river a bit later, which is, goes right down the middle of Poland, from
That's
the
true.
mountains all the way to the sea. So
That's
it's
true.
inescapable
So I
part
would
of
say,
Poland.
yes,
Yeah.
I would say that the Vistula River was the main reason for forming settlement here. And also the other reason would be the position. Because today Płock is almost in the center of Poland. So the position
It's
was
very close.
Yes.
I keep going to places that are in the center, like Łódź, Płock. Warsaw's a bit off to the side. Yeah. Listen, we're going to be right back. Let's go see something interesting nearby. I think there's a lot of things to see. It's time to take a walk, right?
Yes.
Okay. We'll be right back with more of Poland Daily with my guest, Danuta, our guide for the day. Okay, everybody, so welcome back. We've walked down to the opposite end of the square, and we're standing now at a very important place. It's a place of pilgrimage for people from all over the world, and involves the miracle of Faustina Kowalska, who was a little girl from Łódź who decided to become a nun very early on and just went to Warsaw without any money. And then she stayed in Warsaw and she worked just to make enough money for the clothing that was required to join the order, because they didn't take just anybody off the street. She worked for that as a chambermaid. After she'd made enough money, after a year or so, she was taken into an order and became a very devout nun. And this place is in her memory. But why particularly? What happened here?
This is the shrine of the Divine Mercy, where Sister Faustyna Kowalska, as you've said, a very young nun, had a revelation of merciful Jesus. She had dreams, and in her dreams, Jesus Christ came to show that there is some hope for the world, but the world should wake up. And only through prayers and only through sacrifice, people can save the world. And Sister Faustina wrote a diary, and in that diary she described her revelations. It is quite important for pilgrims to come here and to see the place. The place in which
how did she describe the? Yeah, she saw it here.
Yes.
How did she describe this? What's the story?
She had a.
What did they tell you?
Yes, of course, sisters. They have a priest who is a kind of a spiritual guide.
Yeah.
So in her confessions, Sister Faustina spoke to the priest. It is not only a written record of her revelations, but she also saw image of Jesus Christ that you can see in the painting placed
red and white light
with the light
from him or something?
from the heart of
From the
Jesus
heart of
Christ. Yes, and she knew that she really had to make a painter, because she did not paint it herself, but find someone to put her vision into that beautiful painting with words, I trust you, Jesus. Yes, so.
And that's the story.
That's the story.
And she died quite young, didn't she?
She died quite young.
33 years old, the same as Jesus, right?
Well, that
Oddly
was
enough.
Yes, that's true. Those were very difficult times for sisters, and they really worked hard. They helped orphans. They helped girls. They had a school for girls here. They really devoted their lives.
When was she living exactly?
At the beginning of the 20th century, so it's not that long.
Yeah, because we were just doing a lot of programming here about 100 years ago.
Yes.
And she was also about 100 years ago.
Yes.
And she died, I think, in about 1938, didn't she?
Yes.
Just before the war.
Just before the war.
Again,
That's
yeah.
true. That's
so
true.
There were gathering clouds of war, but nothing had
Yes.
happened
Yes.
so serious yet. At any rate, that's a fascinating story. And people are coming from many, many countries.
That's true.
And it's not only Catholics.
Not only
but
Catholics.
people who are looking to investigate divine revelations.
But speaking about religion and Płock, we need to remember that in Płock we have a mix of different religions. At the very beginning of the history of the town, we had people of Orthodox religion, we had Muslims even, we had a lot of Jewish people.
There's a
Churches,
rich Jewish history here.
There is a rich Jewish history in Płock as well. So a mix of different religions which lived together.
Yeah, which
created the spirit.
This sort of cosmopolitan spirit.
That's
but
true.
of course Poland had that up until World War II,
Yes.
as we know. Well, listen, I think now we should go and take a look at the cathedral where two of the famous kings of Poland are buried. Don't
Yes.
you think we should go?
Yes.
Because I've been waiting to see this.
Yes,
I love the cathedral.
that's most important to see that place.
I think it's going to be great. Okay,
Yes.
stick with us. Poland Daily Travel. We're going to go look at the cathedral. See us on the next installment. This is the place where Faustina had her miracle, and that's worth remembering. Okay, stick with us. Come on, let's go.